The global economy is having more and more impact on all our lives, both as consumers and managers in organisations. Now today we're going to focus in on the emerging economies, the so-called BRIC economies, Brazil, India, China, Russia. Now joining me in the studio today is Sunil Poshakwali. Now he's an expert on the global economy and emerging economies in particular. Now Sunil, can you tell me more about the implications of the current global economic crisis?
People often call the current financial crisis a global financial crisis. And I would like to question that really, because is it really a global financial crisis? I don't think so, because if you look at what is happening in the BRIC economies, which you mentioned, the Brazil, Russia, India, and China, the four big giant economies, the economic growth in those countries remain very robust. China continues to grow at 9 to 10%. The Indian growth forecasts have been actually recently revised upwards to about 8.5% from about 7.5%. Russia and Brazil also continue to grow. So you must question whether really this crisis is a global crisis. If you look at the reality, the real picture is that one of the forecasts is that the economic output of now they called so-called E7 countries, which includes of course four BRIC countries, is likely to exceed the output of the US and the European economies by 2030. If you look at some of the other numbers, they are staggering. I was looking at one of the reports recently, and it was suggesting that the total external assets held by the BRIC economies are to the tune of $4,700 billion. So really, the BRIC economies are continuing to demonstrate robust growth, so much so that some of the economies, there is fear that some of the economies are hotting up. In Brazil, for example, the Brazilian currency, because of the hot capital flows, has risen by nearly 40%. So much so that the government had to intervene to actually stem the flow of external capital to further control the appreciation of Brazilian real, which is the Brazilian currency.
So let's have a look at the implications of that then for mature economies. What would you see as the main kind of headlines on that?
Well, for one thing for sure, that the mature economies will have to increasingly participate with the emerging economies. Simply to enjoy the fruits of growth, which are likely to accrue over the next decade or so, in my view. To give you just one example, UK, for instance, exports currently about 7% of its exports to developing countries. Clearly, that's not enough. UK will have to diversify its exports base from exporting to US and its traditional European partners to more developing and emerging economies, which is where the growth is. In terms of the implications, more capital flows are going to go towards emerging economies. There are going to be increasingly foreign direct investments, portfolio investments going into these economies. Increasing level of mergers and acquisitions activities are going to take place in emerging economies. And overall, really, that's where the action is.
So there's some very significant messages there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.